Today we will try to talk about the three main forces shedding light on their future, but of course analyzing the present. The lion, bear and tiger are the strongest animals on Earth, but their difference is that they live in different environments. This makes them special from each other. Someone reading it thinks what these animals are and what these have to do with the history of the 21st century. Do not worry, now I will explain first, and one of the oldest is the tiger, which once in its brightest period was dragon, stands almost as one of the main coats of arms of the Chinese imperial family from the first emperor and back, Qin Shi Huang. Chinese symbol was one of the oldest, only with the takeover of power by Mao Zedong China took the form of a tiger that China used as an ideology for all of Asia. This ideology had great brilliance in its beginning, continues even today, but after a fundamental change was made, which is the opening of the economy compared to the closed economy that was. The bear, the animal which represents Russia, one of the largest areas in the world. Russia is one of the countries which had the stages of its resurrection with the terrible Ivan continue this splendor until the XIX century. After a black cloud cover Russia until the end of the Romanovs with the last Tsar Nicholas II, Russia undergoes great changes after the establishment of the dictatorship of Lenin and Stalin, and what remained after the fall of the Berlin Wall brought Russia remains what it is today. The lion, nicknamed the king of beasts. Only one state deserves to keep and be called such as the islands or England, which in its coat of arms has played one of the islands which has had its last conquest by the Vikings, and since period there was no conquest of the role of England, and its first appearance is the Great Charter of Freedoms of 1215, Magna Carta, of King John, which limited the absolute power of the king until the 19th century England had its climax, then attention settled on the new continent America. Today we will not analyze the past and the periods of the three strongest animals in history, but we will talk relatively about the future of these three superpowers, as it will be 2021 for these countries, but the year 2030 will still be the three animals. With it will the strength or prosperity of other states leave them behind. 1. Tiger. Asia, or otherwise China, today in 2021 continues to be one of the communist countries which, in comparison with other former communist countries, undergo changes. These changes to be primary as the opening of the economy. But how is the situation of China today? One of territories with a large area in Asia and the largest number of inhabitants in the world, nearly 1,400,000,000. China's large population or overcrowding is one of the main problems of 2021. Overcrowding brings the problem of pollution, which makes China one of the most polluted countries in the world, but this has not prevented it from continuing to grow its industry, which is one of the main pillars of China. One of the strongest, let's say, as it has its first peculiarities, is that the large number of inhabitants and the devaluation of the Chinese yuan, where $1 is equal to 6.49 Chinese yuan. This brings that the labor force is quite free in China. How can this affect the Chinese economy, as its money is quite devalued? They profit by paying cheaper workers in China, but on the other hand China provides three main things: investors who invest in China, the employment of its workers, and the most important in a communist economy is to increase its products, which today are one of the cheapest, followed by Turkey. But how China manages to export their goods all over the world is quite simple enough to mention the online sales giants like Alibaba, eBay and AliExpress, who serve as intermediaries for the export of Chinese goods in the world, which interests investors. The technological revolution of digital money, otherwise blockchain, which started as a game in the world today, has turned into a revolution, such as Bitcoin is being supported by some countries such as China, where it has the largest number of miners of BTC production, where the value of this digital currency is quite large. It peaked up to the value of 64K. This shows the great interest of China, which seeks to be a smart investor, where it occasionally hits the miners of BTC, supporting its crypto which makes China the first country with digital currency such as yuan, which has started to be used as a way to pay workers in China. And it is still the year 2021 and its progress is quite large due to technological and economic innovation. Will China keep up the pace until 2030? I think it is one of the countries that has an ideology that suits quite well the 1,400,000,000 people, the economy and exports, which makes the difference by making a state ideologically and militarily religious and investor smart when it comes to the economy, which is open. If its economy would not be open, think that China today would be a fragmented state, as in the time when Qin Shi Huang took the step to unite, so it would look like China of 2021, but also that 2030. But their ingenuity made them as powerful as they are today. If China could, even's biggest enemy, which is overcrowding, which has followed it since 1945, where the ideology of communism was for population growth, which brought in the consequence of overcrowding if it can, and this enemy. The year 2030 will be the year where China will have the crown not only of Asia but also of the world. Bear otherwise Russia, one of the largest countries in the world, and the borrowing of communism, one of the largest businesses in which began its experiment with Russia with the overthrow of Tsar Nicholas II after the victory and takeover of power by Lenin and then from Stalin. The bear managed to get bigger by expanding the territories from all sides until it was third with the fall of the Berlin Wall. All of Siberia, but also the situation with countries which Russia has a lot of influence, such as Catacombs, Georgia, etc. It will be seen what 2030 will bring. Russia, since the fall of the Berlin Wall and to this day, seems to me like the patient of the Bosporus that was the Ottoman Empire once in the XIX century. This is because Russia continues to stand with its ideology that the state Russia is led only by a strong hand and not from a democracy like we have in the West. Its idea for a greater Russia is still today. Plus, from the Party of United Russia came its Supreme President Vladimir Putin, who since 1999 has had full power to have in control the big bear, and this seems to know how to do it quite well and think that the biggest challenge of the bear is to survive as long as possible, and for about 30 years he has succeeded, but will be able to do even 10 years. Why not? Economy is the primary condition for a country to survive and have a well-being, but since the bear in this part has fallen into a lethargic sleep, the export of wheat and gas can be said to be the two bases of Russian exports, but from what it produces a lot of revenue is also weapons, which is quite large like America. But in recent years the blow that you and Europe from the passage of gas from Azerbaijan to Europe caused the fall of Russian exports. This happens due to the complicated situation and the war from afar between Russia and Europe, which will continue, and that the bear has done very well this from experience, but also showing teeth to Europe with nuclear weapons. Russia's foreign policy is truly admirable. Being a good soldier in youth, Putin has realized that the better the soldiers play, the longer the war will last, and the longer it lasts, the idea of victory and new ideas can to be born, in addition to her little satellites that she has that we mentioned above. This hostile Turkey, as they share the same ideas and are against Western democratic ideas, she is trying to make a closer cooperation with a sick former, but not to suffer his fate, and she has done quite well. And her legendary ally, of course, friendly France. It's close since the French Revolution 1789 until now, but with a hidden and not open alliance. The bear will need a lot of work to stay until 2030. Although he said that he will be president until 2030, the road is long ahead. It is not enough to have only allies, but also a strong economy to face a tiger and a lion who always attacks when you are defenseless. Lion, otherwise England, one of the most powerful states of all time. Unlike the other two animals like the tiger and the bear, has held the throne of the monarchy, where everyone else loses, some with revolutions, some with wars, but no lion. He was always for democracy and the disappearance of the monarchy, but not his, because the form that the lion had, parliamentary monarchy, was the most perfect form that continues even today with full mouth. I think he deserves the throne, otherwise I will not call him the lion who has from the XVI to XX century that controlled the fates of the world, while it was called the scales of the world in its time. But how is the situation today in England, and will the lion still have his brilliance until 2030? Will I still seek to be confirmed king? If you are going to think about the bear and the tiger, and I had to give analysis from the past and the current situation, lion finds it easier than both to be part of 2030 again and with his greatness. But why? England is the country which has shown economically that it is quite strong, both in terms of exports and the part of providing raw materials that it received for free from its former colonies that today aim to be the first in the world, China and India. But mention these two, as one of them filled English banks with its gold, while the other for opium, gunpowder and tea, which is still traded in England today. The lion reserves are so large that even the Vatican would envy it. Yes, it is these gold reserves that the lion has that make it the most powerful state, because whoever has the gold controls the world, and not only that, but also the greatest diplomat of all time. This is shown by the lion's relationship with Europe. This has to do with entry and exit of England from Europe, and it always does this according to its interest. The last time it came out it was thought of a drop in GBP, but the opposite happened. I suffer after leaving the EU. Where it is known until 2030 it can become part again, or it may come out again, it depends on the interest it wants. The lion will need some time to stay calm and not stand out, but with the death of the queen who has pursued a policy of neutralization, we will wait. What attitude will the new King of England take? Whether the lion will continue to wake up or continue to be indifferent again, it depends. As it is known, maybe the queen continues to be alive until 2030. If not, we will see another lion. I think a new lion who will either make a difference or hand over the crown.